of what we think we know about history never happened. And a lot of really fascinating events took place that we will not learn about unless we read the fine print, unless we read the footnotes. Today I'm going to discuss two different Revolutionary War era midnight rides. The first, commemorated in a poem in 1860 by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, that is still being memorized by school children today. It begins something like this. Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. 'Twas the 18th of April in 75. Hardly a man is now alive. Blah, blah, blah. The British are coming, blah, blah, blah. Would it surprise you to learn that Paul Revere was unsuccessful in his ride that night? In 1995, David Fisher wrote a book on Revere. What was supposed to happen that night, Paul Revere and two armed men left town. They were only going to go 12 miles down the road and warn two people that a ship was coming, so they might get arrested. That's it. Two people might get arrested. He was unsuccessful in his ride. 20 minutes after they left, captured. Now there's a wonderful monument. Paul Revere was captured here. If you don't believe me, look it up. And he wouldn't have been yelling through the streets of town, the British are coming, because in that day, everyone in Massachusetts was British. Now, some were rooting for King George and the Loyalists. Some were rooting for General George and the Patriots. But everyone was British. The other ride, also commemorated in a poem. This one came out in 1912 by Fred Warner. The title, The Midnight Ride of the Female Paul Revere. The difference? She was successful in her ride. She was unarmed, she was alone, and she was but 16 years old. But she's just a footnote to the cause. Literally, that's how you can learn about her, as a footnote. Mary Lamb wrote a 3-volume history of New York. Volume 1, page 295 down, midway, there's a footnote about Sybil Ludington and her midnight ride. How did a 16-year-old get involved? Well, she was the eldest of 12 children, the eldest boy being but 8, so not much help. Her father was Colonel Henry Ludington, leader of the 7th Regiment militia out of Dutchess County, New York, under General Washington. She had worked in the grist mill. She had taken care of her siblings. She had worked on the farm, but most importantly, she had been a messenger for her father. 16. Well, on April 26, 1777, a messenger arrives at the Ludington house exhausted. Colonel Ludington, gather your men. We gotta push back General Tyrone. He's already chalking the doors of the Patriots. He's gonna burn their homes. He's gonna take the supplies for the Continental Army, please. We don't know if Sybil Ludington volunteered or was enlisted. We don't know. We do know she left after 8 o'clock at night and did not return home until well after sunup. We do not know how many doors she knocked on, but this is what we do know. Knocking on the wrong door could have meant death or imprisonment. Or her horse taking a tumble could have meant death or serious injury, and failure in her mission could have meant death to her father and many others. But she was successful in her ride. We do know that 400 men marched behind Colonel Ludington the next day. They joined General Benedict Arnold, Colonel Huntington, and their 300 men. And they were able to push back General Tyrone and his 1,800 men at what's known as either the Battle of Danbury or the Battle of Ridgefield. Same event, different names. I don't know why. But we do know the Patriots were successful. Now, is there any other proof? Well, yes. Colonel Ludington's memoirs were published, and he mentioned that night and Sybil's contribution. Alexander Hamilton, in a letter that is now at the Huntington Museum in Sierra Madre, California, thanked Sybil for her contribution to the Danbury expedition. In his journal, General Washington wrote of a visit to the Ludington house to thank Sybil and her father for their contribution. So did French General Rochambeau. Wrote in his notes. He visited the Ludington house and thanked Sybil and her father for Danbury. Well, there's been more recent commemorations. In 1961, a life-size sculpture by Hyatt Huntington was erected and commemorated Sybil on her horse. 1975, the United States Postal Service came out with a series of stamps, contributors to the cause, and right there on the 8-cent stamp, Sybil Ludington. So she might have been a footnote to the cause, but when it comes to history, some of the most fascinating events are in the footnotes. Thank you.